the White House is about how close these races are and how neither party's got this in the bag yet.
And one of the interesting things about the president, he's not only traveling on behalf of senators, he's also traveling on behalf of governors. Now, where there's a lot more volatility than even in Congress. David.
Well, there's one particular governor he's very interested in named Jeb Bush in Florida, and he seems to be putting his race fairly safely into his own column. But overall, the Republicans are going to take a hit on the governorships. They had a great year 8 years ago in electing governors. Most of those governors are now term limited or about to do other things. And in the places where those folks are stepping out, the Democrats are well positioned to step in. So we're going to have a lot more Democratic governors on Tuesday night than we have seen for a long time.
What states will be the big turnover?
Well, look at the Midwest. Michigan, Illinois, possibly Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, further east. Big states that are important not just in terms of state politics, but very important pieces in terms of electoral politics looking ahead to 2004.
But you know, governors don't have an enviable job. I read somewhere today that when Bill Weld was elected governor of Massachusetts, he was passing one in the airport the next day who pointed him out and said, "That's the poor so-and-so," I can't use the word that was said, who was just elected governor of Massachusetts, because there's such bad news, because people are unhappy about the issues, but especially about the economy. Is that translating?
Well, not necessarily yet, but first of all, it is true that the state of the economy is the #1 issue on voters' mind these days. It's been true for the last month or so, at least according to the polls. And what that means is that they don't like the state of the economy and where it's headed. And in fact, this week there was more bad news. Though the July through September quarter showed that the economy was growing pretty smartly, a little over 3%, there was an increase in unemployment reported this week, a dip in manufacturing, and it was also reported that consumer confidence reached a 9-year low. Now, Democrats have been saying for a while that that ought to be a real boost for them because they are the party of domestic issues. The president has not been focusing on the economy so much, more on war politics, Iraq and Al-Qaeda and things like that. But the polls don't show a tremendous advantage for either the Democrats or against the Republicans or Bush on the economy. In fact, it's almost evenly split, which is very surprising, certainly surprising to the Democrats, I think. And though the economy is what's mostly on their mind, the Journal actually used this phrase, and I will borrow it, that voters are anxious about the economy, but not angry about it. They may not be voting on this issue, and so most of the races, including in the House of Representatives, are about local issues that are sometimes tied to the economy, but not in the broadest sense.
How's the White House handled that, Jean?
Well, the White House is relieved. The White House had long feared that if the Democrats got their wish and the economy became the issue, that the president would get some kind of backlash, get some blame for this, and then that would tilt the races. It's interesting that the White House has stepped up the part of Bush's speeches that talk about the economy, not terribly so, but he has a whole section on jobs. If anybody doesn't have a job, it's a problem. I care about it. You know, they've beefed up that language to try to insulate him from that. But really, it's a great relief. And what I think they're finding, and I guess all of us are, is that the economy is just playing in states that have really been hard hit. There are some who say that's why the North Carolina Senate race is tightened up to some degree, whereas South Carolina, right below it, may not be quite so tight, and North Carolina just has taken a bigger hit economically.
And I had somebody suggest to me today that we may see this economic effect in this sense that the country's headed in the wrong direction in reduced margins for a lot of incumbents, even if they're not defeated in this round. That's what happened in 1990, and it set the stage for a real turnover in 92 and 94.
We should probably say that, of course, we don't know who's going to win, and it could well be that the result...
You don't know?
No.
I have it right here.
You got it? I thought you weren't supposed to tell me.
No, oh, that's right.
I'm sorry, it's a secret here in Washington. But no, the entire election could be a barometer for whether it is guns, Iraq, or butter, which would be the economy, that really is moving things. And if you look at the polls, there is a slight advantage for Democrats on the economy in some of the polls. So if we are surprised by a wave of Democratic victories in both the Senate, which is possible, and maybe even the House, where Republicans are expected to hold on to the majority there, then we could see that the economy is more important than the polls are now indicating it's likely.
The election also could be a barometer of no issues at all, because you said the White House is relieved that the economy hasn't become an issue, but they were hoping that the war would become an issue and it would help the president. And you remember Karl Rove's comment early in the year in Austin saying, we hope that the economy will help our candidates in the election, and there's no evidence that I've seen in the polls that that's really affecting these races in any big way.
Well, give me an example then of a Senate race, or several Senate races. Tell me what is driving them, if it's not the economy or the things that if we could retire the term, it's the economy, stupid, I'd be the happiest person in the world. But what is it then?
A lot of what's driving them, as Jeff said, is local issues. And you're not hearing you're seeing any nationalization of issues, even though Bush is going around campaigning for these candidates and putting himself on the line. It's not about Bush. You don't see him in a lot of the ads. It's about local issues. In Missouri, for instance, there's a real tight race with Senator Carnahan trying to hold on to her seat. The issue there is, was she elected in her own right, really, or is she just stepping in for her late husband? And what is her background and experience? A lot of it is about that.
Well, another thing, a lot of it is about people attacking each other. The attack ads, I mean, we talk about this every single time, but they're really crazy. We have an example of one that is my favorite. I mean, there are a lot of choices out here, but we want to show you just a little bit of it, because when things get close, they really get nasty. This is Gwen's blue ribbon ad, the one that made me go, oh my goodness.
Mike Hatch, crusader, tough guy. Loves a good headline. But what do those who know him say?
A political chameleon.
A flim-flam man.
He's mean as a junkyard dog, and everybody knows it.
Now, this guy,
Poor guy.
Yeah, apologies to him. He's he's Attorney General candidate in Minnesota. He's not Minnesota. This is where things are supposed to be placid. But that is supposed to, these kinds of ads, people say, depress turnout. Maybe people say, they're not about anything, I'm just going to stay home.
I found a political scientist at the University of Wisconsin who told me in all seriousness those ads increase turnout. Now, how can you argue with a political scientist from the University of Wisconsin? It seems so counterintuitive to me, because when you talk to voters, they say, I'm appalled by it, I'm turned off by it. And I think that's one reason that a lot of people don't vote.
You know, usually in midterm elections, so you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think as low as 1/3 of those eligible to vote usually show up, maybe just a little bit more, which is appallingly small. In election years, only half of those show up. And these negative ads have gotten to the point where it's almost an inside joke. It's one negative ad responding to the other negative ad responding to the other. It's almost like an inside conversation. If you didn't see the first one, you don't know. And so a lot of people see no reason to get engaged in this kind of debate because it's not affecting them.
Gwen, one thing that's intriguing is, as you cover the landscape here, the question is what is driving this election, and the answer seems to be nothing in particular. And at the same time, we're talking about the most important midterm election in years and how tight it is, historic levels of margins that we're going to see. So we could have this terribly important historic election about nothing. And that, I think, is making it difficult for both parties to sort of figure out how to manage.
We haven't talked about the House. We haven't talked about the House, where a lot of this plays out, actually. I'm curious as to if there are any signs, because there's so many safe seats, 435 up for grabs, but the vast majority of them safe. Are there any signs in the few races which, because of redistricting or other reasons, are not safe, that we can tell what's moving people?
Well, the Cook Political Report, which is a nonpartisan analytical publication that looks at these races, says that maybe there are only 16 races out of the 435 in the House that are really toss-ups. And if you do the calculation, the Democrats may need all 16 of those to go break their way in order to get a bare 218 majority in the House. Now, that redounds against but I think that may be too narrow an analysis in a certain way. The Democrats only need to pick up 6 seats net from where they are now in order to take control of the House. And if there is some national movement, some change, if incumbents maybe are taken down just a notch, there could be a switch that we could read. But if you look race by race, it really is very, very localized. In Connecticut, they're talking about the moving of Stanley Works overseas for tax advantages. Elsewhere, they're talking about pork barrel projects and one person being able to bring it home and another not. It's really not clear that it's a national race, at least from where we're sitting right now.
Let me ask everybody a question.
Yeah.
I'm curious, between now and Tuesday, what are the issues, what are the races to watch that are likely to be shifting between now and then?
Well, I think if you want it, if you want the easy roadmap, follow the president's itinerary, because he's not going anyplace safe. He's going where the tightest races are: Georgia, Minnesota, Missouri,
Rick.
South Dakota, Florida.
I think we have to look at these weekend polls to see if there's any shift one way or the other. That's the
David.
thing to look at.
I'd watch the governorship in Illinois.
Thank you for watching, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe.